All right, so we are here at Laguna Seca for a very momentous occasion for Turner Motorsport. So we're here with, obviously, the Gunther Steiner of Turner Motorsport, Will Turner. So let's rewind. Do you remember your first pro race? Because that's what this is all about today.
Yeah, for sure. So my first professional race was in 1998, and it was in Topeka, Kansas, in SCCA World Challenge. The name changed to Speed Vision World Challenge, and then eventually to Speed World Challenge. Um, but at this point, it was again. I remember it was a scramble to get there. My rusted out dually and an open trailer. No, actually, it was an enclosed trailer, but it might as well have been an open trailer. It had so many rust holes and stuff. Towed it out there and entered and made our first race. And thinking back, I didn't know if I was going to make my second race. Never mind 557 races later. So it's been a long time. This number of races kind of snuck up on me. But I definitely did not think when I first did that race that we'd, where it would go. I didn't have a plan. I knew I wanted to race. I knew I liked racing BMWs, and I wasn't even thinking of winning. Of course, I wanted to win, but it wasn't about winning. It was about just getting in the show and racing professionally.
Right. So what's like the genesis of your racing career? I think you're a BWCCA club racer first.
Yeah. So how I started racing was I kind of got in trouble at some BMW CCA driver schools for scaring some corner workers, I think. Maybe Oktoberfest Sears Point with a couple of buddies.
I think we heard some stories about that.
Yeah. So they basically said we would appreciate if you didn't go out in the next session, or you didn't use the rented Lincoln Mark 8 or whatever we had at the time. And actually, fortunately, some club members lent us their cars that were more adequately prepared for driving school than the Hertz
took
Mark 8.
A rental special out there.
Exactly.
And we heard some stories there from that O-Fest. I think some people had trapped you in your room with like some saran wrap or something like that.
Yeah, there was a lot of fun going on back then. One of the things that you think about with racing and being all serious, and you do need to be serious about the competition and the safety and prepping the cars and everything, and we certainly are, but we also like to have fun. And back in those days, again, pressure was off, and it was 50-50 fun and track stuff. But so I first started doing BMW CCA driver schools, and then fortunately BMW club racing started, where it was one step up, and you didn't get yelled at for passing in the corners and stuff. Had a great run with BMW club racing because you're racing against similar cars, and or you're racing against people in cars that you knew, rather than an SCCA weekends or stuff where there's a whole bunch of people that you are SCCA members, but they're not necessarily similar cars or people that you know. That had some great times there, and fortunately it allowed me to progress up into the place where we were ready to go pro racing in '98.
So what was your first pro race car?
Yeah, our first race car was a E36 325, and many a late nights building it. I did used to get my hands dirty. I think there was only 2 or 3 of us that worked on the car. And again, I remember pizzas getting delivered at all times at night because the deadline was try to make the race next year, and it took us probably a year to build this car.
Wow.
Of course, you don't know what you don't know back then. We had limited resources. It's not like you could just jump on the internet and figure out how to build a race car. So we had the rule book, and there were some other teams running BMWs. Fortunately, we could look at those and try to get an idea of what to do. We definitely made a lot of mistakes in the first car, but one of the fortunate things about running a BMW is you're starting with a car front engine, rear wheel drive with almost 50-50 weight distribution. So that actually made the best model to convert from a street car into a race car versus some of the other cars that were in World Challenge back in the day when they were front wheel drive cars. A lot of front-wheel drive cars were there, some American cars, and the BMW was just a stable platform, so it made it a little easier to run one.
Right. And then when does Don Salama come into the team? Is it from the start?
No, so Don wasn't there at the start, but he was a autocrosser in the New Jersey chapter that I had heard about because he was very successful in autocrossing. And he hadn't really gotten his feet wet in racing until he asked me to build him a race car. So this was before, kind of before I was in the pro racing ranks, and it kind of in the middle of what I was doing. Was I making parts for street cars? Was I building race cars? Didn't really know what I was doing then, but I converted his driver school car into a full-on race car.
Crazy.
He started racing in club racing. Again, pretty successful guy and pretty successful driver in that. And when I had a vacancy in one of the races, we put him in. And again, he didn't know what he didn't know, but he did very well. And we became friends. And 557 races later, he's still sitting there making fun of me, or I make fun of him, and calling strategies for our winning race team.
Right. And then how many races did you run as a pro before converting to, I guess, team principal is probably the best?
Yeah, so I was right about 160 races. And when Don and I co-drove together, we won a championship together. And after that, I was like, you know what? Won a championship. It's very difficult for me to do team owner, team manager, spark plug polisher, and race car driver. So I kind of decided to take a step back after, again, going out on top with a championship, and took a step backwards and been running it from the sidelines ever since.
Right. So your IMSA start. When did the IMSA racing start?
Yeah. So when SCCA, our SCCA or our Speed World Challenge touring car, that went from 1998 to 2004, and we did a little race, maybe a race in 2005. Mm-hmm. At the same time, we saw the value of doing endurance racing, where you could have two drivers in the car, basically split the cost of running a car with two drivers,
right?
In a bigger series. And back then that was the Grand Am series, which is now known as IMSA. So 2005 was our first start in IMSA, Grand Am, and we haven't missed a year since.
It's awesome. And then how many wins have we had? I mean, it's 9 championships, I think, is that right?
Yeah. I don't have the exact number of wins. I was going to look up on my phone to see where we're closely at, because there was a time where we kind of forgot to keep records on all this stuff back in the SCCA days. But we're almost at 40 in the IMSA between GS and GT. Speaking of GT, our first GT car race was, again, Grand Am Daytona 2010.
What car was that one?
That was
2010, maybe
E90
or 46.
2010. It was the E63 M6 tube frame car. So it was basically a NASCAR style tube frame car, silhouette car with a carbon body on it, and we entered at Daytona. And believe it or not, that was the car that we were most competitive with at Daytona between 2010 and 2024 this year, because this year it was the most competitive we've been with a BMW. In the years between there, BMW's been nowhere at Daytona, unfortunately.
Yeah, so M6 tube, that's gonna be crazy. So obviously it's got to weigh a lot less than the M6 GT3 that you eventually ran.
Yeah, again, it was a totally different type of car, because up until 2010, we were building cars from street cars. We were building race cars from street cars. So we'd take a street car. I'd even bought cars right from the BMW dealer and trailered them in and ripped them apart and made them race cars. But the 2010 GT car was made of a bunch of tubes and had parts that were from all different, NASCAR type programs. It did have a M5 V8 engine, and it did have I think, pretty ugly looking bodywork of the M6 back then. But it was fast. Not a lot of drivers, not a lot of pro drivers could drive the car fast. A couple of them could. It didn't suit a lot of driving styles, but I think Bill Oberlin,
Of course.
and Bill Oberlin could make it go, and Boris could make it go all right too. But that was fun.
Two good names that, of course,
Yeah,
drive the wheels off anything.
absolutely. Those guys are great.
All right. So, what's your fondest racing memory, either as a driver and then as I'll just say team principal?
Yeah, so I've been asked a lot about what my fondest memory was, or the best memory in racing was. Because leading up to 557 races, that question gets asked: what was the best one, or what was your best part? And I don't really have one, because there's so many differences. I remember my first win, which came kind of unexpectedly in Michigan, street course. My first win was amazing because again, back then you want to win, but you don't expect to win. That was a highlight. When I put Bill Oberlin in the car and he went from last to first and won a race for me, that was eye-opening, because I thought I was a good driver, and that's when I realized,
You're not.
man, I'm not. That was a highlight. First championship. When you win a first championship, of course, you won another one. We won back-to-back championships in 2003, 2004. And when we won the first one, it was an amazing experience. And then when we won the second one, it was actually that much harder, but it was just as rewarding, which was really cool. And then, of course, like being at Daytona for your first race start at Daytona and doing a 24-hour race, even though we didn't win Daytona. We haven't won Daytona yet. That was certainly a memory, because that's a race unlike anything else. And then we got this crazy Z4 GT3 car.
Remember that one?
In 2014. Just getting that car, that was our first basically car that was built by BMW, handed over us to race. It was amazing, because the car was, somebody else engineered the car. Oh wait, there's better engineers and better car builders than us. Like, yeah. So that was great, because we put it on the track and we learned a lot about just the evolution of a GT car, and then winning a championship with that car with Dane Cameron, which again was an amazing feat, because that car was not fast in the straightaway. It was only fast in the corners. And we won a championship because we did better in the races where there were corners than there were straightaway races, and it was unexpected.
It was enough to get you the championship.
Yeah, yep. And I'd like to think that we helped Dane Cameron get his career going.
Of course. Any fondest memories in terms of the drivers that have driven for you? Is there? I guess I can't really say. Is there a favorite driver that you've had?
There's not a favorite. There's not a favorite driver, but going through the ranks, we've had a lot of BMW factory drivers. Then we've also had our customers that couldn't have done it without them. And looking at the list of how many drivers we've had in the car, we couldn't even list them all in the press release. Again, it would be this long. We've had a lot. Yeah, we had a lot of drivers. I think what I've gotten out of having all these drivers in the car is that it seems like every driver has a certain skill or a certain attribute that we learned from as a team, and also. I've had some drivers that were just starting off in their career, and then I had drivers like Bill Oberlin where we took him from, I'd say, the middle of his career all the way through all his wisdom years. And I've had drivers that are very fresh and very, very new. For instance, like Francis Seldorf. His dad drove for me back in 2000s.
Is that scary now?
And it's scary, because I remember when Francis was born, and his dad kind of took a step back from racing to concentrate on his family and stuff. And now I have Francis in one of my cars, and he's super green because he just started racing and he's in GS with us, but he's super fast. And I guess what I mean is, like, had a lot of different drivers. They've all had different strengths and weaknesses, and they've never ceased to amaze me.
Yeah, I remember when Robby started racing with you, he was fast, but I think that season he barely got in the car because something would always happen when Bill in the car. I think at Laguna, the car got hit twice.
Yeah.
And had to get retired.
Yeah.
I think the first lap might have been Road America. Bill got shunted off and into that race, so he barely got the drive. But he's turned out to be super, super fast. And the evolution has been amazing. And now he's a senior driver. Is that crazy?
Yeah, no, it is crazy. We met Robby in 2017 or 2018, and here's this kid that I used to make fun of him, probably behind his back. No, not to his face too. Speaking
of Robby, Robby's great.
Robby, there was something that I used to think you didn't have. At some time when I first met you, it was like a pulse. I think still looking for it. I'm still looking for Robby's pulse, because I've never met a race car driver that is that calm in any situation. And it's not probably calm in his head, but it's calm in his mannerisms. Anyway, getting back to the Robby Foley story, I met this kid, didn't think he had a pulse. Put him in a race car, and immediately he was quick. And immediately I could hear from the banter on the radio, or the conversation on the radio back then, that this guy's super chill, very little ego, again, external ego.
Yeah.
And he just did all the right things. So we decided to give him another shot, and he continued to impress. And a bunch of wins later, and a bunch of success later, and a championship later, like, he is the senior driver on the Turner team.
And now he's a factory driver,
He's a factory driver. So I found him first, and BMW got him, but we share him, and he's been doing a great job.
So basically, you've developed a professional factory driver from your program.
Exactly.
So basically, if you want to become a professional BMW factory driver, start with Turner Motorsport.
Yeah.
They'll build you up. And
I'm not taking any credit for Penske grabbing Dane Cameron, but there's a common theme here, right? There's a common theme. BMW grabs Foley, Penske grabs Dane Cameron.
So a farm team, if you will.
Exactly.
Awesome. So let's talk about today, well, not today, but this weekend at Laguna Seca. So it's race number 557. Are there, like, any butterflies on the race start? And obviously you probably want to finish at least on the podium, but of course we'd love, as BNWCC, we'd love to see you win.
Yeah. First, there aren't really any more butterflies for this. It is a big number, and what I've learned by doing all these races is that anything can happen, right? I know that my team is prepared, and I'm prepared, so that's an easy part. The unexpected happens, and again, that's what I've learned after doing all these races. Like, anything can happen. So not really any butterflies. A little bit of excitement, because it is a milestone, and my crew, the guys and girls at Turner Motorsport, have worked really hard over all these years. Obviously, I didn't do this alone. I did this with the help of them, or they did this with the help of me. So I just want this weekend to go smoothly if possible, and hit that 557 and celebrate with some tacos.
And some champagne, which is right there.
It would be great to celebrate with some champagne.
That's awesome. So I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I think it's a great talk, and congratulations on the 557th professional race start for BMW.
Yep. Yeah, again, it's a little bit surreal. Great being here. I hope the BMW Car Club is here to cheer us all on.
We are.
I know that there's an M4 CS unveiling that's happening as well.
Yeah. Technically, at the time of this filming, it's already happened.
Okay, it's already happened. That's a great thing that BMW cares enough to launch it out here at Laguna, and knows it's important enough to do it with the BMW Car Club.
Yep.
And for my 557th, I think they're going to give me one, which is awesome, and they might give
or 557
or 557. But no, it's great, and hopefully we can make you guys proud.
Yep. All right. Thanks for your time, Will.